Homecoming is a charmer, and a timely one at that. After a sort of brutal opening to the season, no doubt a bit of an echo from the events of Season 2, we finally get an episode that is mostly sweet, funny, and charming. It's not overly complicated, and that is a welcome reprieve. As the episode opens, the Scoobies are discussing their homecoming plans while Buffy is very obviously wondering who she would rather go to homecoming with, though things between Scott and her have advanced beyond the previous episode. At the mansion, Angel is looking a bit less feral, though still obviously in recovery from his 200 years of torture. Buffy tells him she hasn't told Giles or anyone else that he's back, and I love what Boreanaz does with the name.
Giles.
Like a name he hasn't heard in 200 years, one he thought he'd forgotten about forever.
I haven't told Giles and the others that you're back.
This one is a bit of a leap for me. It seems like a contrivance of the plot for two reasons. First of all, Willow and Giles already know that Angel is no longer angelus because Buffy told them in Faith, Hope, and Trick. And they obviously believed her. And if it's some stigma from the whole hell dimension thing, there's a bit in Beauty and the Beast that suggests that Buffy already told Giles about going to hell in Anne.
From what is known about that dimension, it would suggest a world of brutal torment. And time moves quite differently there, so...
I remember.
So I don't really get her decision to keep this a secret. Obviously Xander wouldn't understand, that's a given. He wants to hate Angel. And if it weren't for the very sweet scene between Buffy, Giles, and Willow, I might have been able to buy Buffy's decision as fallout from The Lie in Becoming Part 2, where Buffy was made to believe that none of the Scoobies distinguish between Angel and Angelus. But as it happens, even on my very first run-through of the episode, this decision didn't make any sense to me and seemed deliberately planted to induce some later drama between the Scoobies. Buffy tells Angel she's dating Scott, and we can see it land with him. I really like the bit of blocking right after where he fixes her collar for her. It's a simple way of indicating, regardless of boyfriend, he still cares about her. Now, on this particular run-through, I'd totally forgotten about this next little bit. Buffy, for some reason, decides that Angel needs to know all about her new boyfriend, Scott, and why he's better for her than Angel ever was. It's a rare case of complete insensitivity for Buffy. She's normally so empathetic. It always struck me as so bizarrely self-involved. She's talking to a guy that's recently been tortured in hell for 200 years. But then, of course, she sounds like she's really trying more to convince herself than anyone else. And then...
I don't think we should see each other anymore.
Trust me, no love lost between me and Scott Hope, but I loved that little twist between the two scenes. And then David Greenwalt immediately made me feel bad about giggling with this long hanging shot of Buffy standing alone in the next few notes on the piano. Incidentally, David Greenwalt, who co-created Angel the series with Whedon, both wrote and directed this episode. Buffy is being watched from a van by two brothers who are transmitting her picture to Mr. Trick and the team leader, and Alan, an employee of City Hall, brings the dossier of the two brothers to the attention of the mayor. Alan seems obviously intimidated by the mayor, and the fact that there's no obvious reason to be makes the mayor oddly more intimidating. More on the two of them in a few episodes. In the library, Faith is standing in for Giles, who normally takes the training beating from Buffy.
Man, guys should break up with you more often.
Gee, thank you.
No, I mean it. I mean, you really got some quality rage going. Really gives you an edge.
So remember the scene between Buffy and Kendra when Buffy introduced Kendra to her anger. And now Faith is suggesting Buffy's anger really gives her an edge. Just something to keep in mind going forward. Due to her campaigning for Homecoming Queen, Cordelia forgets to tell Buffy today is picture day and Buffy misses it. And Buffy finds out after discovering her favorite teacher doesn't even remember her. As usual, Cordelia cuts to the quick of things when describing what the pursuit of Homecoming Queen is all about.
It involves being part of this school and having actual friends.
In a frustrated indication of her feeling that her school life is passing her by, Buffy decides to take on Cordelia for Homecoming Queen. Mr. Trick has assembled a group of bounty hunters for a competition to see who can kill off Faith and Buffy. The competition includes the surviving member of the Gorch brothers. You'll remember the other one was eaten by a giant wet vagina dentata monster in Bad Eggs. Xander and Willow are trying on their homecoming outfits. From the very beginning, the long stairs and the touch of Lisa Loeb in the background would seem to suggest, undercurrents? Sure enough. This is an incredibly significant moment, but oddly I don't really have much to say about this. I find it all completely convincing for this to happen between the two of them. Remember, we've been here before. Willow's crush on Xander has been completely out in the open since Season 1. And Xander showed clear interest in Ice Cream Nose Willow in When She Was Bad, and seemed to come to an unexpected understanding of his own feelings for Willow in Becoming Part 2.
I love you.
Two friends for that long, the right light, the right moment, there's something oddly sweet about it all. Until we all, including the two of them, remember the circumstances of the world outside this tiny bubble of hormones and formerly unrequited love. Yeah, I buy it. Pretty well done, actually, and I'm glad the wonky chemistry between the two of them in the previous episodes didn't go untouched. Appropriately, seeing Oz in the next scene gives me that slightly wonky feeling of, ugh. Buffy is trying to get the gang to help her in the homecoming race, but Cordelia has already beaten her to the punch, and Willow delivers the line most relevant to the theme of this episode.
It's just that she needs it so much more than you do.
I love that one of the weaknesses Buffy has listed under Cordelia on the board is Xander. Considering Cordelia's parallel role as the shadow self, I find the implications kind of fascinating. Also, Bree is awesome, I'm not sure how that's a weakness. And in a pop music montage set to Fastball, we see Buffy and Cordelia working the school for votes, and the ensemble of bounty hunters getting ready for Slayer Fest. Things between Buffy and Cordelia become heated, and Xander and Willow are feeling the weight of their divided loyalties in more ways than one. They come up with a plan to trick Cordelia and Buffy into riding together to the dance. Remember, Buffy was supposed to be riding with Faith. The limo driver drives the two of them to Slayer Fest instead and sprints off. Buffy fends them all off while she and Cordelia resolve their differences.
I just thought, homecoming queen, I could pick up a yearbook someday and say, I was there. I went to high school, I had friends, and for one moment, I got to live in the world.
The episode is shot in a way to show how isolated and invisible Buffy is often made to feel. She desires recognition by her peers, but doesn't feel like it's possible through her identity as the Slayer. She thinks that nobody sees that. So in this episode, she's seeking recognition by trying to recapture a bit of her youth, and these are the results. But can you imagine how it would feel for her to be recognized for who she actually is? At the dance, Xander and Willow are in shameful standoff mode.
We have to find Buffy. Something terrible's happened. Just kidding. Thought I'd give you a scare. Those finger sandwiches?
I know I'm prone to pointing out the little details of Giles and Buffy's parental relationship, but there is one here I really love.
I want to be here when Buffy, however the thing turns out for her.
He's so hopeful she'll win, it's absolutely adorable. Giles hears a message from Buffy that they're in trouble, but the remaining Gorch and his vampire bride are already there. Buffy kills Ms. Gorch, and Cordelia intimidates the remaining Gorch brother out of the library. Buffy uses the two wired corsages to beat Team Sprockets into shooting each other, and she and Cordelia make it to the dance just in time to find out that neither of them won the homecoming crown. Mr. Trick gets dragged to Mayor Wilkins' office, where the mayor recruits him to his team, revealing something very important is going to happen this year. Homecoming feels aesthetically unique to me. After the topical and emotional pummelings of the first few episodes in Season 3, it's more of a comedic romp. And as much as Buffy is a show that takes place in high school, it very rarely feels to me like a show particularly interested in the trappings of the high school experience. Sunnydale High is usually just a backdrop for more significant stories about Buffy and the Slayer life. But here, Sunnydale High feels more real to me. With only a few exceptions I can remember, the show doesn't often use recognizable pop artists. Most bands who play the Bronze were unsigned, which has a benefit of making the episodes feel a little more timeless, as those tracks don't evoke a specific time or place for people. But this episode relies a little more heavily on recognizable late 90s pop music, including Fastball, Loeb, and 4-Star Mary. Together with the more vibrant high school portrayal, the episode really feels grounded in that time and place for me. I'm not prone to nostalgia, but this one does it for me, as I happen to have graduated high school the same year Buffy did. I dig it. In fact, it's the Slayer Fest aspects of the episode that this time feel a little silly and unconvincing. Doesn't this guy know how a bear trap works? It's his bear trap. So, like, does he use the same knife over and over and over again, or does he keep making knives? Do you have to drink a lot of milk? Why did Hans and Franz only put one grenade in the grenade launcher that can obviously hold way more than that? Did they think the cabin was filled with gasoline? How is this visualization in any way helpful for following the location of the Slayers? Of course, I think the Slayer aspects of the episode are supposed to be more farcical. This episode is more bewitched, bothered, and bewildered than innocence or passion. We have a reminder here that there is a part of Buffy very much like Cordelia. The part of her that was popular at Hemry High School and won ball tiaras. The part of her that was dominant before she found out she was the Slayer. It's a part of herself she doesn't really need anymore. As Willow said,
She needs it so much more than you do.
Cordelia has to this point been Buffy's shadow self, but this episode pretty much puts that specific relationship to bed and drops the metaphorical mantle for Cordelia. The concept of the shadow self comes from Jungian psychology, and reconciling with it is referred to as individuation. That is, elevating our subconscious desires from the collective unconscious into the conscious realm so that we can integrate them into our whole personality, rather than being completely consumed by them as we saw with Pete in Beauty and the Beasts. It's a lifelong process, and this isn't the first time that Buffy has been through it with Cordelia. In Out of Mind, Out of Sight, she was forced to deal with her own desire for the life Cordelia had, one she thought was uncomplicated by adulthood.
You think I'm never lonely because I'm so cute and popular?
And in When She Was Bad, she regressed into her more Cordelia shadow self like Buffy.
You're really campaigning for Bitch of the Year, aren't you?
As defending champion, you're nervous?
The fact that Cordelia gets dropped as Buffy's metaphorical shadow self going forward is actually an indication of Buffy's growth and more complex personality. In addition to the subtext of that relationship, there's also the briefest reminder of Angel's return in the opening sequence. But beyond that, this is mostly just a comic romp. I'm not entirely sure where Homecoming ranks in the hierarchy of my favorite Season 3 episodes, but it's probably in the top 10 there someplace. Remarkable given how consistently good Season 3 is. As I said, it's a charmer, and after the seriousness of the season so far, a welcome one.
Slayer Fest 98. What is a Slayer Fest, you ask? Well, as in most of life, there's the hunters and the hunted. Can you guess where you two fall? From the beginning of this tape, you have exactly 30 seconds. No, that's 17 now, to run for your lives. Faith, Buffy, have a nice death.
You cold-blooded bastard. I hope you leave enough room for my fist, because I'm going to ram it into your stomach and break your goddamn spine! Ah!
I'll take care of it.